In today's show, we have another multi-topic episode where first we discuss, does the double slit experiment prove we are living in a simulated reality? And secondly, we discuss, should all trial verdicts be left solely to judges without a jury?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well. He's pouring himself a Smirnoff. It's what the TNT Talk Show does to you. Resort to drink and alcohol to get through, or do you know what? He's in a bright and cheery mood. Maybe this is the way forward.
Maybe, there is no problem. I think this is one of my dad's. There is no problem so deep and so intractable that a stiff whiskey wouldn't sort it out. This is a vodka, not a whiskey. So cheers, guys. No, that's not all vodka.
Okay, there is some tonic in there, I hope, or something.
Plenty of okay. It's not. I'm not crazy.
As you've got this jollity in your voice, do you want to say hi to our audience?
Not particularly, no.
Oh!
There are two types of drunks: the ones who tell lies when they're drunk, and the ones who tell the truth. I tell the truth when I'm drunk. I'm not drunk, by the way. But would you just actually say hello to the audience?
Yes.
Nah.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Are you holding your breath, Tony?
He's still not doing it.
Were you really holding your breath?
I was waiting for that moment. I'm holding my breath. Is he going to say it? Is he going to say it?
You're so easy.
Oh,
hello, audience. Hello.
Yay! Eventually. Anyway, in today's show, we hope to have a number of topics. So it's a multi-topic episode, but we'll see, obviously, time permitting, of course. Now, the first one is an interesting one. This is asking the question, does the double slit experiment prove that we are living in a simulated reality? Now, Taya, I don't know whether you want to explain to our audience what the double slit experiment is in simple terms, or would you like me to do it? Or so just so that our audience get an understanding as to what the heck we're on about here.
I'd love to do it, but I don't understand it, so I'm afraid you're going to have to.
Okay.
You're going to have to.
What the double slit experiment is, it's a really bizarre situation. We think that light, science believes that light is a particle, so it's a proton. But then occasionally they think it's a wave, so light is a wave. And they don't really know why, which one's which. And it's all to do with the double slit experiment. What it is basically a piece of paper, a card, or anything that's got two vertical slits on it. Now, they're equally spaced apart, not too far apart from one another. And what they do is they shine a light through the two slits, the same light. Now, behind the slit is a board. And the idea is you see the pattern that appears on the board. Now, what happens is when you're not looking at this experiment, what you get on the board is it looks like a wave pattern because you get distinct gaps along the board at the back where the two slits. So the light's gone through the slits and you get this weird wave pattern. However, if you observe the light, so you're looking at it, or you've got any sort of equipment measuring the light, and you repeat the experiment, you no longer get this wave shape. You get two distinct lines where you'd think, well, the light's gone straight through the slits and left a mark on the back board. That's what you get. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. When I'm looking at it, I get two lines. So how you would imagine it, two slits in a bit of card, the light goes through and you get two lines appear on the backboard. But when you're not looking at it, the end result is a multiple lines, which indicates a wave.
Just for our audience, I think Tony got confused himself a little bit there because he's switched it. First, you said when you look at it, you get the wave patterns.
No, when
and,
you don't look at it, sorry.
Well, and then you corrected yourself the second time. So just to be clear, which is it, Tony? Just once
right. When you're not looking at it and you just see the end result. So what they got like photo paper, so you can see where the light ends up. So you then see the photo paper at the end of the test. It looks like a wave because you haven't been looking at it. So you get all these weird lines. But if you've got the photo paper and you're observing the experiment as it's happening, you only get the two slit lines.
Okay.
And that's the problem.
Okay. So for people who are confused by that description, imagine that you're shining a torchlight, let's say.
Yeah.
It's not that, by the way. I'm just giving you sort of my layman's interpretation. Something like a torchlight. It's not, that's not the case, but something like a torchlight. And you're shining it at a cardboard that has two slits in it. If you are looking behind the two slits at yet another cardboard, let's say this is all in a darkened room, if you like, okay?
Yeah.
If you're looking at it and you're looking behind the slits, the cardboard with the slits, and you're looking at where the light falls, you will see two distinct slits, if you like, which is where the light from the torch went through the slits, and as you can imagine in your head, it has lit up the backboard, correct?
Yes.
And it's just two. It's just two, because two slits, two passages, two areas of light, two areas of light, okay? So that makes sense. However, what Tony is saying is this. If you use photographic paper, which is something to record how the light has fallen on its surface, if you put that behind the slits and you look away, or you stop observing, you don't get two bands of light, you get several bands of light. So you get light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, light. And then the eggheads who thought about what the heck is going on here said, oh, well, you know, this is not light behaving as a particle, because if light behaves as a particle, then only one part, then the particle can only pass through one slit. Obviously, it's common sense. It can only go through one slit. It can't go through two slits. But if it's a wave is a broad band, isn't it? It's a band of it's an area, and just like you're standing on a beach and a wave comes in, it doesn't just come into where you're standing; it comes in all along the beach. So in the same way, that one single wave goes through the two slits, and as it interferes with each wave on the other side of the slit, sets up an interference pattern, and sometimes the interference augments the signal, the light, and you get areas of light, and sometimes it cancels out the signal, and you get areas of darkness. So you get light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, like that. And that's why they think, oh, that's very peculiar. When we are looking at it, light behaves as like a particle. But when we are not looking at it, light behaves as a wave, like a wave would. Well, why would light do that? Why would light behave in two different ways, simply depending on how we observe it?
Or measure it, even if equipment has measured it. Yeah. Anything is trying to measure it or record it, it behaves like a particle. As if it knows that it's being looked at. But when no one is looking, it behaves as a wave. Now, that is almost ridiculous if you sort of try and fathom that. Why would it do that? How? It's almost like it's being controlled, if you would view it that way. But how scientists explain it, they say it's quantum mechanics, because the light is behaving both like a particle and a wave, but the end result is different depending on our observation, which, into my mind, maybe I'm just a layman and I don't understand, quantum mechanics, that makes absolutely no sense at all. But then
Well,
they say that quantum mechanics are a bit weird anyway. But go on.
you'd be glad to know that from when I finish explaining it to you, you'll understand everything, because it's a load of baloney. Now,
Why is that a
unfortunately,
load of baloney? Come on.
Tony doesn't let me use straightforward language because it's a lot stronger. I have language that would really put it to you. It's not baloney. It's a better word, and
It
it
starts
rhymes
with
with,
a B and
starts with
ends
B
in an
and
S.
sounds a lot like Goldilocks. So you English native Britons would understand. It's a load of. Listen, look. First of all, this quantum mechanics thing it comes across like this. If you think you understand it, you're misinformed. And if you're properly informed, you'll be confused because it's a load of baloney. It comes from the idea of this particle and wave thing starts off, I think it's called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which has got to do with measuring the and I just grunted, measuring the position
Yeah.
or angular momentum of an electron. It's one of the two. It's what you want to do. You can measure its angular momentum or you can measure its position, but you can't measure both at the same time. And the explanation for that, I believe, is that if you measure it one way, the electron acts as a
In
wave.
another.
And if you measure it another way, it acts as a particle.
Yeah.
So it is in this indefinite state until you measure it. And that's why this idea arose. But for a very long time, I've been very worried about this so-called double-slit experiment because they always show in diagrams the slit being in a homogeneous surface. They
What do you
draw
mean?
a straight line. But look, a photon is incredibly small. It's much smaller than an electron. In fact, I was supposed to look this up, and I plumb forgot to look up the details. It's incredibly small. A slit, what you and I would consider to be a small slit, to a photon would be galaxies wide because of how small it is. There's no way you can draw it like that. The edge of the slit is made up of atoms. Why don't I see atoms and electrons and fields? I mean, all these particles have got fields. So when you draw it properly, it's not going to be a homogeneous straight line. It's going to be bubbles and shaded areas. And so if an electron is if a photon is passing through this area, why are you not saying that it would interfere, that these other particles would interfere with it?
Well,
Why wouldn't they?
photon neutral? It doesn't have an electrical field.
No, it might
So,
not have an electrical field as we've discovered it yet, but it might have some kind of interaction. I mean, they bounce off things, don't they?
but okay, yeah, but that doesn't answer the question as why, when someone's observing it from, it could be a distance. It doesn't matter where you are, how far away, you're just looking at the experiment. It behaves one way, but when you look away, it behaves another.
Well, because
That in means, or almost it's aware of the observation.
no, because when you're not looking at it, I mean, how do you look at an electron? How do you look at an electron? It's not that you're looking at the. I keep on saying electron. You're not looking at the photon. You're looking at the results of the photon.
No, you're looking at the actual experiment.
No, the actual photon of light. You can't look at it until it's
No,
passed through the slit,
that's
and then
right.
you can't look at it until it has landed or not landed on the far side.
That's right. But the
Okay,
observation, it means the whole piece. It's almost like you're observing the whole piece, not just
I'm
the end
saying
result.
I'm saying that the hygiene, that's the wrong word to use. Isolation.
Mhm.
That the isolation of the experiment is disturbed by introducing an observer to it.
But
If you're not there, you have X number of variables. When you add yourself, no matter how you do it, you have X plus 1 variables. And that changes the environment. That's what I'm saying. And since we haven't drawn a proper representation of the experiment, we haven't taken into account what this thing is passing through. It's not passing through, but going past. Then I don't have any faith in the experiment. Is basically what I'm saying. I'm very skeptical now. You got to account for because there are a lot of assumptions that people are making. I'm saying that you can't make those assumptions.
I
That
think I think personally that, I mean, but what's this got to do with our topic? In other words, are we in a simulated environment? Well, the reason for that is the fact that, in my opinion, if the photon of light, it's almost like self-aware. That's what it feels like. So if it's self-aware,
Hmm.
that's how you could view it, because it knows it's being looked at. If it knows it's being looked at, it's going to behave a certain way.
No, you're just working backwards from an assumption. You're not working towards a resolution. You're saying, oh, it knows I'm looking at it. It doesn't have any such thing as it knows you're looking at
But
it. You are
that's what the
there.
results are
You are
implying.
there. You have introduced an observer into the experiment. It is no longer an isolated experiment.
Okay, but they've done this example where you're saying you've introduced the observer.
Hmm.
You can introduce people into the room.
No, mechanically, you can just leave a let's say you have this photoelectric surface
Yeah.
and you place it behind the okay, here's an experiment for you, but
Okay.
you put the photoelectric surface behind the two slits, which I don't believe in, and that they're slits anyway, because to a photon, those are not slits, those are entire galaxies or something. If you understand what I mean. And I put a cat in there. And put a fish in front of the cat. So the cat is having its dinner and is
Yep.
not paying any attention.
Yep.
Okay, and it's not even intelligent. It doesn't really care about photon
Yeah.
or double-slit. I'm saying that if you do that, it will still give you a wave pattern
Yes, it
of being
does.
observed.
It
Yeah,
does.
because it's not isolated. Maybe we give out some kind of weird frequency. Maybe things give out frequencies and stuff that we don't normally
No, but
measure.
they've done this experiment with humans who haven't been observing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in the room. So going to your theory about, oh, maybe we emit something so forces it to behave like a photon. The people have been in the room but looked away. So they've got their eyes shut or something on their eyes. So they're just merely in the room. And the photon behaves exactly like a wave, as if they're not there. So it's unaffected by the presence of the people there. It's as soon as those people look at the experiment that the light behaves as a particle.
Okay, they're sucking the light then. So light is going. They're looking at the far screen,
Yeah.
and what they're seeing is a reflection of the screen. They're seeing a reflection. That's how you see things. It
Yeah,
has to
yeah, yeah.
reflect off
The
it.
light off,
And
yeah.
as they're seeing it, that is what is causing it. That actually is like a well, no, I'm not going for no, I don't want
So
to
you're
go
thinking humans have that, are seeing it incorrectly, but they've done this
no, not
experiment.
humans seeing it incorrectly. you are taking the light. You are doing something. You are
Interfering
interacting with the light
somehow.
No, you're interacting with the light, and it's instantaneous. Because when we did a show about the speed of light,
Yes.
I did say that there's a theory that light travels in one direction at a certain speed, but travels back at infinite speed. Do you remember me saying that?
Yes, you did say that.
In other words, when you fire a photon, a laser, let's put a laser. You fire a laser at the moon. We say it travels at 186,000 miles
a second, because
a
it's the
second.
round trip, though.
It's
That's
a
how
round
we
trip.
measure it.
That's what we're measuring, a round trip. Some people are saying no, actually, it goes out at 360,000 miles a second, right? But it bounces back instantaneously. That the speed of light in one direction is always instantaneous.
Yeah, there's no way of proving that.
Well, that's the problem. There's no way of proving it, but it will account for certain observations that we've seen. Now, it was a long time ago when we did that show, so unfortunately, I can't remember what those observations that it accounts for are. But it does account for certain observations, and you go, no, that solves that problem. But as you're saying, a lot of scientists aren't buying into it because there's no reason for light to come back instantaneously into our eyes. But if we start with, okay, light comes back instantaneously into our eyes, what effect does that have on the double slit experiment? With people who go, oh well, in that case, we can understand why. Do you understand? Did you see what I mean? Would
But
that change?
why has this experiment been done with sensitive equipment and the same result? We've taken the human
Because the
element out of it.
receptor is not eyes that matter, is the direction it's coming back into. So light goes out on one, but it comes back at another. How does it know whether it's going or coming? I don't know. I think I remember a little bit. No, no, I don't know. You know what? This is a little bit. I was looking at this experiment. I'm just not comfortable with it. So
Okay.
I didn't do enough reading. And the little reading I did do just confused me even further. I smell a rat, a huge rat, but I don't have the
Or is it
mathematics.
because of lack of understanding of the whole thing that maybe
I'm not happy with
raises
the
our shackles and
with
hackles,
the
whatever it is?
hackles. I'm not happy with the representation, the graphical representation. It's all wrong. That's not how big. That's not how
I
big
know, I
a
understand
photon is.
that is true. The graphical
Obviously,
representation was
there's
done
something
to
wrong. Yeah,
simplify
and then
it.
they say, and then one video I was watching said they can shoot one photon through the.
Yes, that's right, a laser.
How do you shoot one photon? I just want to know, how do you isolate one? I mean, no matter how fast you switch it on and off, light is so fast that you can't, because light is 186,000 miles per second. No, no matter how quickly I do that, the trillion, quadrillion, the billions of photons have I've left. There's no switch known to mankind that can switch on and off, and you just got one photon. How do you just do one photon?
That's actually not true because have you seen those super fast cameras that they've managed to use? They can
I've heard of them.
they can do 2 or 3 million frames a second.
Too slow for 186,000 miles per second. Can't it? I mean, how's that going to? One photon is, first of all, what is the length of a photon? It's something nanometers.
Yeah.
Right? It's ridiculous. Nano. This is 0.1 nano. It's so blooming. How do these go on and off? And it just.
I mean, we're talking about stuff. We're talking about stuff from a layman's point of view.
Yes,
let's be perfectly honest.
I need to hear from a scientist, a physicist, who doesn't believe that the universe created itself. So I know I'm talking to a sensible scientist, a sensible physicist, and not some buffoon who believes in evolution or anything. So once he can get me in front of such a scientist, that someone I can respect, that makes sense when he opens his mouth. And yeah, I think I would prefer his. Thank you very much. When he opens his mouth, then because I'm a bit of a bigot like that.
Oh
Yeah, I
dear.
don't say I'm right. Just I'm a bigot. I just admit it. Yeah, okay, fine.
Go on.
And a white one too, if you don't mind. Yeah,
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
a white, a white man. Thanks for that in front of me. Like Isaac Newton and all that crowd. Someone I can actually respect. All right, here we
Oh
go. Then he
dear.
sits down and he says, "We do blah 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 blah," and it's explained to me. Now, I really want to go to University of Northampton. I'm afraid to show up and say I'm looking for a white man who can explain something to me. Because people are like, what the
Can't
hell
we
is
get
this?
Neil deGrasse Tyson to make a guest appearance and answer this for our listeners?
Weren't you listening? He's black.
Yeah, but so what?
Damn, it doesn't look. I'm black, man. I know what black people don't like. Superstitious lunatics,
Let's
man. I'm
stop
not
it
interested.
now. Look, okay.
No, by the way,
We haven't even
this
answered
is,
the actual specific topic
by the
that
way,
this was
just
for.
in case people are wondering what's going on, listen, audience. This is being recorded just a couple of days after Christmas. So I'm still in a very Christmassy kind of, hey, jovial kind of song. I'm not going to take anything too seriously today. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning.
That would have
So
helped, yeah.
that would have helped. But look, you can see me on my vodka tonic and everything. Look, obviously, it's all, but no, not. The other reason we can't have Tyson or DeGrasse on, apart from the fact that he probably won't come onto our show anyway, is that he believes in evolution. And I
And
think
so are you close-minded to evolution? If he explained it to you with the evidence that they have, are you not a reasonable enough person to take that viewpoint on board and think maybe my current view was slightly flawed? Or are you already got a fixed mindset that says no, my viewpoint is my viewpoint, I'm not even open to other people's views on this
You asked the
subject?
question incorrectly. It's not if he shows me the evidence that they've got, he's going to have to show me new evidence. I'm familiar with the evidence. So he'll have to show me new evidence, and the new evidence is going to be something I've not seen before. And I'll look at it and go, wow, I didn't know that. Now I'll have to look at it again. I used to be an evolutionist, Tony. It's not as if I was born this way. No, I was born. I was told that God created the universe and everything, blah, blah, blah. I believe that story. Then I went to school and then they explained about evolution. And then I went, oh, okay. And then I believe that story. And then I found out about what they're saying. I was like, oh, this is a load of baloney. And then I no longer believe in evolution. So I've changed my mind twice. So I'm happy to change it again.
I mean, that's a slightly different topic of what we're talking about here. The reason why we let's get back on point here. The reason we brought this up about the double slit experiment is because it seems to suggest in yours, my eyes in particular, perhaps, is that the photons, not protons, the photons seem to be somehow, can't explain how, aware they're being observed. So they behave differently dependent on the fact they're being observed or not. So it almost implies that if it's being observed, a program is running that makes it behave a certain way. And when it's not being observed, it then behaves in a simpler way, which is the wave. Now, this is where the simulated environment comes from, because we even touched on it on previous shows. If we are in a simulated environment, it would not make sense for the simulation to render all the images
all the time.
The time. Exactly. But unless they're observed, that's when it will make and create that environment only when it's observed. And the same would indicate, in my humble opinion, the way the photon is behaving. So as we observe it, it behaves as a photon. But when it's not being observed, it behaves in a wave format because it's easier. And that is something that is perplexing. It's certainly perplexing to me that these photons behave in this manner. And science doesn't really know why. It's come up with theories, but we don't yet know 100% why it behaves the way it does.
Well, if you believe it, I don't believe in an experiment. If the experiment turns out to be true, which I doubt, the wave format is a diffuse field of probability. That's all it is. It's a diffuse, well, that's all it is. That's one way of describing it. It's a diffuse field of probabilities. So nothing has actualized. And if from the point of view of rendering, it's far easier. Like you said, it's just easier just to say, well, there's a probability field here, there's a probability of this, a probability of that. Like if you interact with it. So if you like, it's if you have to give eggs to some, I don't know, I'm making this metaphor up as I go along. If you have to give eggs to a certain number of people, and you must satisfy them, you put eggs close to you in the minimum space for distribution. That makes it the easiest to distribute. You're not going to put it behind you far away where you have to go and grab it. You're going to bring it up closer to you. So that's what I mean by this field of probability, that the supercomputer, whatever is running the simulation, will just assign probabilities to everything so that it creates the actuality the most easiest, right? And I read somewhere that in every cubic centimeter of so-called empty space in a vacuum, there is enough energy. Now, I didn't really get where the energy was coming from. I don't understand, but there's this basic stuff in the universe, this basic thing that is there, right? That we would call it a vacuum, but it's still there. And that in that 1 centimeter of cubic emptiness, there's enough kilojoules of energy in there to run the planet for 100 years.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that too.
You've heard that too, right? Yes?
I have, yeah.
So there's energy everywhere, but it only actualizes when consciousness, ours, needs it to. So, you know, when they say, does a tree make any noise if it falls over and there's no one there to hear it? Well, I think it might make a sound, but it won't make a noise. Because a noise is what consciousness would hear, understand. But a sound would just be this probability wave, this probability thing I'm talking about, just probabilities. But because it's not one to hear it, it won't become a sound. But if you left a measuring instrument or something, then it would make a noise.
But this is exactly my point and my argument regarding the double slit experiment. This adds more credence to the theory that we are in a simulated environment because of the way things behave when observed or not observed. They change. And the fact that photons of light behave differently when they're observed compared to not observed would indicate that there is something behind the scenes manipulating these things based on what you've just said. So that adds more value or credence to the theory of a simulated environment.
Well, you know, real life shows us that this is the case. For example, when I'm screaming down the highway in my rather awesome car, right? When I'm observed by the police, I slow down. Okay. When I see one of their horrible speed traps coming up, I slow down. Well, when I don't, but I shouldn't even be saying this because I've got a court case coming up. I haven't opened my court summons yet. I'm actually, Lord. Yes, I know. I was a bit naughty and see, I didn't know I was being observed. This is where the universe has got one up on me. It always knows when it is being observed.
Oh dear me. Okay. Anyway, we've done this one. I don't know if you wanted anything more to add because I'd like to get on to another topic.
I don't trust the experiment. I don't think it works. I don't know how it works. Probably because I don't know how it works. I don't believe the slit thing. Doesn't make sense that one photon can, there's so many questions that I need to ask, and possibly what we should do is have a proper person a proper physicist come back who's patient, because we're two old fogies, and he can come back and explain to us patiently and walk us through it, and then we can. So if anybody out there listening, if any member of the audience actually is a physicist and doesn't mind my rather,
Or knows someone who
or
is, of
knows
course.
someone, is why don't you please let us have the chap on, or chapess. So I'm not really accused of being a true bigot. No, it doesn't matter what the gender or the skin color is, whatever. Let's have them on. Let them come and explain this, because I've got a lot of questions to ask, which I don't think Tony, for all he does try, you got to give him that. He steps up to the plate, but I don't think he's got the scientific training, if you don't mind
No,
putting it that way.
no. Okay. Yeah, that's a challenge to our listeners out there. If anyone out there, as Tayo has said, knows of anybody who is scientifically minded and knows this experiment that could maybe come onto the show, even just for 5 minutes to make a guest appearance, we would love to have them on the show and put a challenge to them if they can explain it to us and clarify the situation for us two numpties and make it clearer for us, of course. So what's your final take, Tayo, on this?
A load of baloney, mate. Nonsense. Utter nonsense.
I think it could still be we are in a simulation, but that's just, again, my layman's opinion. Right, let's move on to another topic. The next one is an interesting one, and this is more for our lawmakers out there. Should all trials be left solely to judges so we no longer have the need of a jury? Tyre, what's your view
I
on
don't want to
this
take
one?
this one on, because I want to hear where, because I didn't choose this. I
No,
believe
this
you
was
came
my
up with this.
topic, yeah.
I'm interested to know where did this come from, and why do you think it would work?
Well, a lot of reasons, really. I mean, my foot's not in any particular camp as to whether we should have them or not and leave it solely to judges. But the jury, more often than not, have no idea about the majority of the cases. Now, there are some, of course, that they can certainly add value, but the complexities of the legal system makes you wonder whether the jury can come up with a verdict which is actually within the realms of the law. Because a lot of jury people are from the general public who, because of democracy, we enable this to happen. But we do have to answer the question, yes, for democracy's sake, it's nice to have them there, but do they actually know what they're doing? Let's be fair, because they bring their own prejudice into the chamber, and they may think a particular law could be unfair, and in other words, they'll then err on a different side of the verdict, whether rightly or wrongly, rather than what the crime is being judged upon. And this is the problem. So I don't really have a dog in the fight, but I do understand that jury service that my sons are also now eligible for came up as a topic over the holiday period, and that's why this topic raised its head. And we wondered, are we really needing juries? Because it's expensive. You've got to pay for people to leave their jobs or whatever they do to come and do jury service. So it's a big expense. It adds time. But what's the value? And that's sort of why we brought the question forward.
No, I think it's a very complicated subject, and maybe too complicated for a quick answer. But my feeling is that the problem isn't the jury. The problem isn't even the judges. The problem is humans. Humans are just really bad at being dispassionate. And I've said several times, I've come to the conclusion that stupidity is not directly related to, is not only, well, is not predicated entirely on intelligence. Stupidity is also, in large part, impacted on by one's morality. So an immoral person is going to be more stupid more often than a more moral person, regardless of intelligence. So if you have an immoral person sitting in judgment over someone else or over a situation or whatever it is, they will more likely come up with something that is stupid. Case in point, the Supreme Court, the state of Colorado in America, recently, within the past week or two, past week, I think, proscribed Donald Trump from running as president within the state of Colorado because of his supposed part in the January 6th so-called insurrections of, was it 2021, I believe?
Yes.
2021, 6th of January insurrections. And the thing is this, Donald Trump has not been convicted of anything. I don't even think he's even been charged. Never, so we're not even talking about has he been convicted. He hasn't even yet been charged of this. But he's been convicted by this Supreme Court of something that he hasn't been charged for. And that cannot be an outcome of intelligence. That has to be an outcome of morality. They don't like the man. And instead of being that famous image of, I don't know what she's called, the character is called, is it Madam Justice or something? She's blindfolded and she's got scales in one hand and a sword in the other.
She's at the Old Bailey, isn't she?
She's everywhere. No, this is our Western symbol for courts of justice, that it's blind, and you will be judged with the scales, and if you're found wanting, you will be punished with the sword. And that, she's got a proper name. That character has a proper name, but I've forgotten what it is. But the important thing about that character is that she's blindfolded. She doesn't favor anyone. She doesn't favor the prosecution. She doesn't favor the defense. All she's interested in is in the evidence and solely guided by the evidence, right? So
no prejudices is supposed to be here.
That's a much better way of mine, long-winded way. So these Supreme Court justices were meant to not have any prejudice. They weren't supposed to even care whether it was Donald Trump or not. But obviously they were interested, and this is the problem. And these are Supreme Court justices. So if they can't get it right, what hope have you got for juries to get it right? And you can't. It doesn't matter who you choose. If AI gets to the point where we can guarantee that it's unbiased, I don't know how we're going to do that, but we can guarantee it's unbiased, then we can hand it over to the AI. And AI will say, yeah, guilty, not guilty. And then we go, well, that's fine because it's not.
Well, it's the law. If that's an interesting point. I never even considered that, where AI would actually be the judge, because then you could teach is not the right word, but okay. You could give all the laws pertinent to your country to the AI and it would know it backwards. Far better than any judge, lawyer, or specialist. And it would know the exact laws, how they've been written. So it could actually apply them in a logical fashion. That's the law. This person has broken the law. But isn't law and order, though, a little bit subjective? Because two people could, in theory, commit a similar crime where in the eyes of the law, they have broken the law, but the circumstances then tarnish the outcome or affect the outcome because there were mitigating circumstances in one case compared to another. So even though the law could have been broken in both instances, one of them, because of the mitigating circumstances, couldn't just be a black and white, you've broken the law, because there are morals and other considerations in the picture. It's like that moral dilemma that people have, where you've got a switch that you have to switch, a railway line, where you've got an obese person on the line. It's a track that goes forward, and a train is hurtling down the track, and it's got two routes, and one route is a big overweight gentleman, and the other route is a female pushing a pram.
The other female pushing the pram.
No.
Yes.
You see, instinctively, most people would push the train towards the
That's because they're
overweight
not
gentleman.
obese like me. I didn't have to think about that one. She goes. Yeah, not mine, not mine.
You see, these are moral dilemmas that an AI, which is because both are breaking the law. You've sent the train to kill somebody, so the outcome is someone is going to die.
I suppose the AI would say one person versus two, kill one. It's logic.
Okay.
Kill one.
If you had 3 old people on a track, old in their 80s, and one young lady with a baby, would the AI work it out and go, well, the 3 people have lived their lives, whereas it's only this one lady with a pram? Do we save the young lady in the pram because it's a youth?
When you say old, how old is old?
They're in their 80s, for instance. 3 old people.
They're gone, man. They're gone. They've had
but
it.
You see the dilemma that we have
they said
here.
their 50s, in their 50s. If you had said in their 50s, well, you could then say, well, 50 times, they've got another 30 years each. So 30 times 3 is what, 90? Yes?
Okay.
And then the baby can live to what, 80 maybe? And then, so mathematically, yeah, you still take out the 50-year-olds. Mathematically. And
see,
that's
this is the
mathematics, isn't it?
This is the problem, you see. Now, obviously, an AI could work that out fairly quickly, but does that make it right?
No, there's no right. We're not looking for right now. We're just looking for practical, surely.
Yeah, but this is where the problem lies, you see. Going back with having a jury, so you've got members of the public, but even though they're not au fait with the laws like a lawyer or a judge would be.
More often than not, don't they come up with the right decision? But according to the law, not when I say according to the law, according to lawyers and people who write about these things, don't they fall on the side of let's keep the jury system? Because more often than not, things balance out, and there's like a common sense, a kind of group wisdom that comes in, and as long as they're given all the information. That sometimes juries don't get all the information because of the niceties of the law. They don't get to hear certain aspects, and then when the trial is over, they're told, and they go, "Why weren't we told that?
We would told never, that. Yeah,
we would never have gone that way if we'd heard."
But there is juror bias, for instance, because
black people get it far worse than white people.
Exactly. So there's all this being played out, and it takes seconds to form an opinion.
Men get it worse than women when they're in front of female judges. So if you just left it with female judges, that's not good for men either.
No. But they should do.
Like I said, it's a human thing. It's got to do with humans. Doesn't matter if it's judges. Doesn't matter if it's the jury. The weak link there is the human element.
So going back to what you said about the actual image that you came up with at the very beginning, it was blindfolded. Maybe that is something that the courts may have to consider, that jury, if you're going to a jury service, you've got to do the whole thing blindfolded.
Well, you can still figure it out. You can still figure it out if you're in America and you hear the defendant speak.
Well, the lawyer can make out who they are. My Hispanic, overweight friend who's, of course they can spell it out and you can form this image in your head.
Sure.
Of course. So, but it would add less bias in those
Almost like a
situations.
blind, almost like when you're hiring blind, when you receive the CV and
Yes.
it's had everything stripped out so that you can't tell who the individual is. You're
Yeah.
just looking at purely qualifications and experience and nothing else.
Well,
But
indeed. And
so
that could be.
maybe everything should be then written down. And you don't do live presentations. So the jury members read or the judges read things. There was a
Well, you
case.
could do it. If actually, you've hit on a really interesting point. What about putting the jurors in a room and all they've got is a big screen in front of them, which they see text of what's happening. So they have to read it.
Yes. No, just not even the screen. They just get papers. So the following day or whatever. So this is what transpired in court. And that's it. Just read off these sheets of paper and juggle those around. For example, there was in France, apparently you can sue anything.
You can sue anything.
You can sue anything. It doesn't have to be human.
Really?
And a couple of 100 years ago, a village sued a bee's nest, I think it was. I might be
What?
wrong. But yes, a bee's nest. It was causing a lot of problems for them. If I might be wrong. No, I don't think I was wrong. I think they sued the bees and they had this nest and they wanted to kill them. And so they went to court. The town or village hired a lawyer to defend the bees, and then
Are you serious now?
I'm
This is
serious.
not a joke.
It's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke.
Okay.
And they went to court, and the bees presented their argument, and the town presented his argument. The bees presented their argument through this lawyer, and the lawyer got them off, got the bees off. They weren't able to kill the bees.
Okay. That's an edge case, surely. That just
the
seems a bit.
the thing is that I was wondering how did the bees present their case, and it was through written testimony or written argument of the lawyer. That's how I formed this opinion that maybe we should be just writing things down, because when you write things down, you can't be tricked. These smart TV shows where the lawyer says something smart and he catches, or he or she catches the culprit out. So it's like, why don't you ask me your questions and I'll give you written answers?
Yeah.
Why do I have to think on the spot? I mean, this is serious. This is my life we're playing with. So why don't we write everything down? And I like arguing. I like things written down, even in social media, for just arguing, because it works out that you get to see the whole of the argument, because you're forced to see the whole of the argument. Flashes of rhetorical brilliance doesn't cut it. So yeah. I think maybe that's the way that could be the way forward. And that should also be able to remove a lot of the bias out, take the bias out, because everything can be sanitized. You'd expect lawyers to be able to sanitize things and, remove things like, well, I'll tell you down in the
the emotive side of the whole piece.
I was actually trying for an American, Black American. Well, I tell you what, I think I'm not getting it right. I'll tell you what, down in the
failing miserably here.
What do they call it? Down in the projects, we just do it like this, dude. Or something. I don't know, something like that. I'm not very good at that.
So you actually remove the not the human element. You're removing the bias that can appear, the unconscious bias most of the time that can appear by us making opinions about people based on any of those attributes: skin color, voice, race, background, gender, the way they are in society. Are they lower class, middle class, upper class, that sort of thing? That's all stripped away, and you're then getting the bare facts. Although sometimes people want the jury to feel the pain that they've experienced when they've been hard done by or affected.
It's good that we don't, actually. It's good that we don't. That it's good that we don't get
Because
the
otherwise,
jury to
yeah, I
feel the
agree.
pain.
Because that's not justice, that's
That's
revenge.
revenge.
Yeah, we
We
don't want
we we do
revenge.
want a case where they say, because this person did this to me or to my loved one, these are the consequences. I can't sleep not at night. I have to take this. I do that.
Yep.
Blah blah blah. So you just write down, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And say, well, and then people can read that and go, that's not pretty good, is it? That's not good
No.
enough.
Yeah.
And okay, well, but the emotion is not is taken out of it, and then
Yes.
you can deliver a. You know what? That's terrible, and we think this is what should happen next. Is this person needs to be punished to this degree, rather than that emotional thing of, oh no, that's awful. I'm gonna do you. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we don't. That's not what we really want from courts of justice.
No.
Not justice, anyway. That's court of revenge. That's a different kind of court.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's an interesting one because the the thing is as well, if we were, let's picture a scenario, if we removed the jury altogether and we did leave it solely up to judges, there'd be a lot of benefits, but then there's also a lot of negatives too,
Mm-hmm.
because there'll be a lot of reduced costs because there's no need to hire a jury. You've got professional, in quotes, people who know about the legal system. That's why they're judges. You'd have just the lawyers giving the for and against case for the judge to interpret, hopefully unbiased, but I disbelieve that completely because
Mm-hmm.
obviously a judge is still human.
Now, hold
But
on a second. Sorry. You wouldn't need to have the jury there for the whole trial because they wouldn't need to be there. Don't forget the trial is producing documents.
yes, that's true. That's
So
true.
once the trial is over, then you assemble the jury, then they retire to simply peruse the documents that have been created.
Without all the emotion and
Nothing. They
the
might not even, they might never set eyes on the defendant or the
yeah,
accuser, whatever,
which makes
which is
sense. Why
fine.
would they? Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be reduced to the defendant, the accuser, witness A, witness. You
Yes.
never even know who's who and what's what. So, because you don't need to, because here are the facts. What's your opinion?
Hmm.
So maybe
That would
that's,
actually, if you think about that, that's actually a really good solution. I'm trying to think of how that, because that means you still got the jury,
Mhm.
which is what we still want to have. Part of the democratic process, you want to still really involve the jury, because otherwise, as you've already said, some judges, like in the Colorado case, could be draconian or act in a certain way, whereas the jury could put the checks and balances in.
Imagine this, Tony. Imagine this. Imagine if Tayo was the judge.
Oh no.
And you came in and you done something wrong. Now look at you, say, you little wuss, you
So,
little wimp.
would you,
I'll
interesting
destroy
question
you.
though, would you want the jury to come up with the verdict, or would you want the jury to hear the judge's verdict ahead of their verdict?
No,
So
jury come up with it. No, no.
they come with their own,
You come,
then they
yeah,
hear the
they
judge's
do it.
verdict, and then could they change it? Or is it once it's submitted, that's it?
Well, judges, I believe, do actually have a right to tell the jury to reconsider. I believe they have that right. They can go, they reconsider. And a lot of the judge's power, I believe I've read, comes from his summing up, the way he sums up. But hopefully that will disappear because hopefully if he's just considering the written text, the judges should not really need to sum up too much because it's just, what are you summing up? It's all there. It's, go ahead and read it.
Well, then that sort of wonders what's the point of the judge?
Well, the judge is there during the trial to stop him from asking, when they stand up and say, I object, Your Honor, that's what he's there for. So people can't get into the record things that shouldn't be there. So when the judge then says, strike that from the record, it really is stricken
Yeah.
and the jury never get heard. But right now, the jury hears it, and then the judge says, "Forget you ever heard that."
Yeah, but
I
they've
mean,
heard
people
it. Yeah.
people obviously are not going to forget. I mean,
No, no, of course not. And that's done as
but
well strategically by
by
some
some
lawyers.
dirty
Yeah,
lawyers,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah.
if this other way works, then when it says strike that from the record, the jury never will hear that.
Hmm. Interesting. Because there's still some situations where you do have to ask whether the jury actually needs to be involved, because it could be a complex business case,
Financial thing.
financial,
You don't
that
even
people
understand what the
can't
hell they're even
exactly
talking about.
what are they involved here for?
Mm.
And in those cases, you do have to think, well, is
But
there any point?
you have specialist courts for that, don't you? You have financial courts.
You do, but then
I don't think
who are
they
the
have
jury? Are
juries.
they handpicked and
I
they
don't
know
think they
what
have
they're talking
juries.
about?
I don't think they have juries.
They don't.
I don't
So
think
they're
so.
already segregated. Is that what you're saying?
I believe so. I believe that they have multiple, like maybe three judges on the panel or something.
Hmm.
So I don't think they have, because the financial things, nobody's going to understand the ins and outs of somebody. And then the contract law, it's like contract law. It's,
No,
you don't know what the hell they're talking about.
no.
So
Yeah, you need special judges for that.
you need people who know what they're talking about, because the language is so
Hmm.
convoluted on purpose, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it's on purpose just to keep people at bay.
And was it the Hershey? Like, was it Hershey? The people who make chocolates, or what they call it,
Yeah,
make
Hershey,
it
they're
called
the
Hershey.
company. Yeah.
They lost. I don't know how. No. Oh, was it Hershey? I don't think it's, sorry, I take that back. I think it was
Scratch that from the record. It wasn't
it,
them.
it wasn't them. Scratch that from the record. Yes. It was an insurance company that lost money because of a comma. The comma was in the wrong place. And
So the
they
the
lost a lot of
language could have
money.
been misconstrued.
Yes.
Oh,
Can you
interesting.
imagine? So it's
Wow.
really, 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 when it comes to contract law, it's
Mm,
something else. That's why they get paid so much in the lawyers.
indeed, indeed. Right, we're getting to the top of the hour here. So do you want to sum up then? So what's your view? Should we dispense of the jury, or do we keep it, or do we adapt it based on your recommendations, which sounded very, very good actually?
No, thank you. Yes. Well, Ty's recommendation is, generally speaking, is all right. So seriously, keep the jury. I love the way they say a jury of your peers. For the rest of you, that's easily done. For me, it's a bit more difficult. Where are you going to find my peers?
Dear Lord.
But I think, by and large, well, in the old days, say the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, even then they were quite racist, weren't they? So that wasn't very good for people like me. But now you've got a lot of woke people who the you can't really trust their judgments. So then again, they're also judges, aren't they? You got woke judges. AI is probably the way to go. Not human. The human is the weak link. Can we start thinking about using AI to handle judgments?
Or to do the grunt work, i.e., what we've just described, where it can transcribe everything that goes on in the room, provide it to the juries. They then evaluate it, come up with an answer that's then provided back to the court so
Yeah,
that they
you're making it overcomplicated, and I don't believe. See, there's this thing called virtue signaling, and I think that a lot of people in our day and age, a lot of this of this society, the virtue signal, they 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 report, they come out with what they think makes them look good, not really what they think.
yeah.
So always thinking about, if I say this, they'll think I'm a terrible person. So I'm going to say he's guilty because that makes me look good. So that's the problem. I think that's a very particular problem that in this specific day and age we are facing. I don't think we faced it before. I'm not sure we're going to face it again. But
Mm,
just for now, the zeitgeist is just bad.
okay. Well, I'm still for juries
Mm.
myself, but I do like some of your suggestions. Are certainly worth considering regarding taking the emotion out by giving the jury just the written elements of the case.
Ah,
Go on,
has it?
go on.
Maybe the jury doesn't deliberate together.
So they're
So
all separate.
they're all separate. And each one goes to the documents, renders his or her judgments individually. Nobody will ever know who they were, so they can't try to look good. There is no virtue signaling. It's almost like an anonymized kind of thing that we're not going to know who said what. So you can't look good. Even the judge will know. All we know is that it is a member of the jury who voted this way. We don't know which member voted this way. So there's no point trying to virtue signal.
That's interesting. Again, another angle. That seems something that could have mileage. That is interesting. These are all very good points, actually. And I don't know whether we've got any listeners out there who are from the legal environment, if they can come forward and think why these ideas are things that aren't practical, but certainly something to consider here. I like those ideas of having segregated jury so they're unaffected, they're just looking at the data that have been presented, and then they put their opinion through and the majority decide and so forth. Interesting. Okay, unfortunately, I mean, we could talk at length of this and we may have to revisit this in a future episode, but we have reached the end of the show for another week.